Hello all, Namaste. My name is Deepthi Sundararajan and you're watching the first episode of the Oz Moms Diaries. The Oz Moms Diaries is a conversation series with real life superheroes, moms who are super talented and who balance their career and a lot of other things, and who can lend us a lot of inspiration through their life journey. My first Oz Mom guest today, our friendship goes a long way back. Not only do we share our first names, but we also share our date of birth and a host of other things. Deepthi Agarwal Mittal. Her name is almost synonymous with Madhubani art here in the US. Deepthi is a Madhubani artist and designer who has been learning this art form from the tender age of 7. She is a hands-on mom to her two adorable kids, and she does super cool things with them, and her parenting style is amazing. And let's talk to her and learn more about her life journey and her journey as a mom. Hi Deepthi.
Hi,
Welcome,
Deepthi.
welcome to the Oz Moms Diaries.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for the lovely introduction that you just gave.
Sure, Deepthi. So let's start right from the beginning. How did your journey with Madhubani begin?
It started when I was 7 years old. My mom actually started a non-profit organization at home where she called women who were less privileged and trained them to become artists and to be able to make art which could be commercialized, which could be sold, so they could earn a livelihood for themselves. Not
Right.
just money, also respect, because these were women who worked as housemaids, who were the wives of the peddlers, street peddlers, who were the wives of rickshawalas, and all of that. So
Okay.
more than money, they needed respect, and they also needed to learn that there is something that they can do in order to earn their own livelihood by themselves.
Right.
And when that organization started, it used to happen at home.
Mhm.
And after I would come back from school, I used to sit with them, train with them, watch the entire process. So I absorbed all of it in my environment, from my environment, and it was pretty organic. So I really did not train step by step. I did not have like a proper formal training, but it just grew with me. The organization, the art, and I grew together.
Amazing. And how was your journey to the US, and how did you start your Madhubani art in the US?
So it was 2010 after I finished my MBA in finance, and after I worked in Bangalore for a couple of years, I got married in 2010, and I moved to US. We were supposed to be here only for a very short duration of time. So I was on dependent visa, and we didn't think that it was. It was it was worthwhile to apply for a work permit because we were planning to be here only for 7 months.
Right.
So
Right.
I was just trying to explore my surrounding, the places around, and I found a temple in Minneapolis. That was where I had landed. I used to go to the temple, and I saw they had a tiny little store where they would sell stuff to raise funds for the temple. So I asked them that would it be okay if I kept some of my paintings over here? The proceeds could go to the temple. Anything that we make out of those could go straight to the temple.
Right.
And they were like, yeah, sure, you can try that out. So I went to Michael's over here.
Okay.
I explored the store. I loved that store. That was like my first favorite store in US.
Yeah.
And I bought some interesting stuff from there, and I started painting. That got me going. The products over there sold. They asked me to host exhibitions where I got to meet people who would buy my stuff, and they asked me if I can teach. So I started off very, very slowly, very naturally. Moms inquired if I would do classes, and I was like, sure. I've been brought up watching how it's done, so I can totally do it.
Right.
That's how it all started. From Minneapolis to Boston, and Boston to Seattle. After I got my work permit, I just took it full time.
Great, Deepthi. And I know that you're a gold medalist in finance. You have an MBA. from there to becoming a teacher, and you were handling kids even before you had kids of your own. So how was that experience?
Right. So when I was back in India, I used to volunteer in my mom's organization, and whenever she had camps or any events, I would be there, just watching kids learn, being like an assistant artist to the main person who was teaching them, or
Right.
sometimes leading small workshops. And it was no big deal that time. It was so natural, and it was going with the flow. And I never thought that this is something that you should acquire professional training in to be able to teach, because
Right.
I saw everybody around me was doing the same. They were teaching, they were learning. That
Right.
process was very, very normal and very organic.
Right.
So I was handling kids, but I didn't really think about handling them, you know. It was like, okay, I see this lady teaching them this way, so I have to do that. It
Right.
was now when you tell me that I've been handling kids, is when I realized, oh yeah, I have had quite some experience with kids even before I had mine, even though I
Right.
wasn't like a teacher as such.
Right, right. And I know that every festival that happens, every Indian festival or every, non-Indian festival that happens, you try to incorporate the Madhubani art and you come up with such innovative workshops during that period. How was it received when you, started Indian festival workshops here in the US?
That's a very good question. It was very, so I am not very religious as such. I know a lot of stories from our mythology and from our scriptures,
Right.
from Mahabharata, Ramayana, and all of that. But I know them as a story. I'm not religious, as in I don't pray every day, and that way I'm not very religious. So after my journey in art started a little more formally, I used to get kids and moms who would ask me if I can teach them around a particular festival in Hindu mythology.
Right.
And I thought it was a very good idea because I was well versed with the story behind it.
Right.
It just did not strike me because I'm not religious as such. I don't practice dharma as much.
Right.
So I started making compositions of art to teach kids about that, about obviously the art form and the story behind it, because I would know the story.
Correct.
So that worked out pretty well because the kids also learned it as a story while they
Right.
were doing the work. And
Right.
when they went home, they would talk to their parents, and parents were impressed. They're like, oh, you're learning more than just the art, which
Right.
is good. So,
Right.
and then we went to temples. So before any festival, we would do like workshops,
Right.
and we would try and showcase those art pieces into temples. So when others saw it, when the little kids who would come to visit temple, they saw it, they were curious to know more about the art,
Right.
why this is done, who is that person in the canvas, and things
Right.
like that. So it just grew from one person to the other.
Right. Because I think our Indian mythology is a huge part of the Madhubani art, isn't it?
Right.
Right.
So Madhubani, they say, started from Sita Swayamvar time, when
Wow.
Janak, King Janak,
Mhm.
commissioned the women folk of the kingdom of Mithila
Okay.
to paint the walls and floors of his palace to prepare for the upcoming ceremony, the wedding
Okay.
ceremony.
Interesting.
So from then on, it has been passed down through generations, and women all along have practiced doing the art form on the freshly plastered walls after the monsoon in India.
Okay.
And they make social scenes, mythological scenes on the walls. So even now, when you go to Bihar and in
Right.
areas of Bihar, you would see these paintings on the walls in the most
Right.
rustic and most beautiful form possible.
Right. So, apart from your regular workshops, I know that you have been doing a lot of socially responsible activities, activities with non-profits, and even in the recent pandemic time, you have an Art with Heart program that you rolled out. So, tell us about some of your, projects in that area.
Sure. So, charity or doing non-profit work for me is not a choice. It's like the way of life. Because
Right.
I grew up, I learned this art form only from the non-profit initiative that my mom took.
Right.
So, it has always been at the back of my mind. And the other important thing that I would like to mention right now is that it's not always about giving money, is
Right.
what you can call charity. It's
Right.
more like the Shramdan, like we call in Hindi. It's
Correct.
like the charity of labor, the charity of knowledge that you give.
Right.
That in my family, that corresponds to that has more value.
Right.
So when I was doing this art form and when I took it up professionally, I always had at the back of my mind that I have to extend a hand to people who are less privileged or who do not have the reach but have the zeal to learn.
Right.
So and now after I started the school is when I realized that I have more hands now. So it's not just two hands that I can use to give out to the society. There are so many kids who are so enthusiastic and their parents who are equally, if not more enthusiastic in lending a hand to the society. Right. So we started grabbing onto every opportunity that came our way to be able to do some social work. My students go out and volunteer for a lot of local non-profit organizations. During the pandemic time, like you said, quite about 35-40 kids created, video recorded the entire tutorial of one project each, and we just put it out on the internet for free viewing, free learning and things like that. Right. So it's that kind of work that I am very motivated to do. Right. Also because of the support that I have. The kids of my school and their parents have been pillars of support in that respect.
And that's quite amazing and commendable, the work you're doing, Deepti, because, there's a general notion that, people move away to the US or abroad and, they just forget about their motherland. But, I feel like we should use our whatever skills that we have learned, we should use in some way to give back to our people and to the community that helped bring us up,
Definitely. I so believe that. Yeah.
Right. You are a part of a prestigious program in the Washington Heritage Arts, Council. Can you tell us something about that?
Sure. So Humanities Washington, which is a wing of the Council of Arts in state of Washington, came up with this program called Heritage Art Apprenticeship Program, wherein one master artist makes a team with an apprentice, and she is required to transfer her knowledge or skills to this apprentice for one whole year.
Okay.
So how it works is every year they open the application and you have to apply in your team. Like you have to form a team with your apprentice, or the apprentice has to form a team with the master, and you have to apply for the program. They judge you based on your experience, your zeal, your passion, and how enthusiastic you are to teach and things like that. So once you get selected, they kind of guide you to finish this process, to be able to transfer your knowledge and skill to the apprentice, so that we can let this heritage art continue. And the idea is not to let it stop, but let more and more people come to terms with it, more and more people come to learn it and things like that. So so that is what the program is about. So lots of people apply every year, and they select about 8 to 10 teams. So 2 years back, I was part of, I was one of the teams.
Okay. That's amazing, Deepti, amazing. So
it's good that at government level, at the council level, they are doing
exactly.
They're taking these steps.
Yeah, and we're really proud of you for representing us as a country, on such a big platform. Into the second segment of this interview, so it's OzMom. So your journey of being a mom, because I have seen you as a mom, and you have some super cool skills up your sleeve when it comes to your kids. So tell us something about your kids and your family.
So I have 2 kids. The older one is Prayan, who is 4 years old, and my younger one is 20 months old. They are they're like full of energy. So they keep me on toes all the time, and I get to learn a lot from them. So we are just, they basically guide our day. So they tell us when we have time for ourselves. Like all the moms would know that they pretty much lead the day. Prayan goes to a preschool, Arya stays at home with me. So yeah, we just interact with each other, play with each other all the time and do some stuff.
Right. And how was your motherhood journey first time compared to the second time? What were the challenges that were different, at each of those times?
So I always tell everybody that you must certainly have 2 kids. Because when you have the first kid, you are learning so much. So you don't really get to enjoy practicing all that you've learned.
Correct.
With the second one, you are putting it into practice, all your knowledge that you've gained during your first time.
Right.
So I certainly am enjoying this phase much more than I did during Prayan's time. Because there was a certain level of anxiety, certain level of unknowns, where you didn't know what he's doing is right, is normal, and what is not normal. With Arya, I'm quite relaxed. I'm like, okay, if she's screaming, that doesn't mean she's hungry. She's just screaming because she's throwing a tantrum.
Exactly.
So I'm enjoying this phase of life more than I did after Prayan was born.
Right. And I can resound with that because you get to enjoy both the kids together the second time because you're more relaxed. Right. And so how do you manage your busy schedule of classes and workshops and your personal projects, and you have Arya at home? So how do you manage with the kids and your work?
The thing is that I have learned, and I've heard from quite a few people, that the only way you can make more, you can extract more from your 24 hours is when you sleep less. So when you have a project, when I have a project at hand, I cut down my sleeping time. Because during the daytime, when the kids are awake, they guide the day. They rule the day, they lead the day. And there is no way that I can ask them to feel hungry after half an hour. If they feel hungry, they have to eat now. So most of my daytime, when the sun is up, is when I am playing the role of a mom. It's only when they have slept and they are in bed, that is from 10 p.m. at night to 3 a.m. in the morning. That's when that is what is me time. So when I don't have a new project at hand, I sleep for most part. When I do have a project at hand, I cut down from these 5 hours to attend to those whatever project I'm doing.
Right, which is pretty amazing because, and also when you're very passionate and you love doing something, I think you automatically, put sleep and everything at the back burner, and, you make time for your passion, right?
Right. So at night when I have something at mind, I really don't feel like I feel the need to go to sleep.
Right.
Yeah, so it just happens very naturally.
Right. But it's a lot of hard work, of course. So we should acknowledge that.
Thank you.
So the other question I wanted to ask you was, we are these new age moms who are, very involved in social media. We are very active. And there is constant need to portray a perfect life. There is a constant need, to super perform, if there is a word like that. So how do you cope with that?
I stay away from social media, Deepthi. I was very active on social media until I got my hands full, which is until after I got my kids. I was very active. I would post, like you said, super perform to the best. If you look at my previous posts, this is what you'll feel. After I got busy, it is so hard to even take your phone out and record something, because the little one would come and snatch the phone away, and that is when she would start her screen time. So to keep all that away, I just sneakingly record them when I feel there is a cute moment happening, like how we all do. But putting it on social media or looking at others is something that I cannot do. It's not a choice. It's not like I've made a conscious choice to not go on social media and watch other moms. But it's not something that I consciously do to try and copy that for my kids. I do whatever comes very naturally to me and to my kids, and I have learned from you actually to be very content in your own skin, to be very happy with what you have, and to your own surroundings. So I'm very happy that I have a few very good friends and I have this tiny little family and social media to sometime, take a peek at, that person is really doing really well.
Yeah.
That kid is
To
really
know,
smart.
to be in the, know and to know what's going on in the world, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So coming to the lockdown period, how did you, handle the sudden change in your life, and with the kids, especially no school and they're at home all the time? What are some of the things that you did to make this period more enjoyable and, calm them down and help them cope with this new situation?
So it actually worked out, contrary to popular belief, it worked out better for me because my husband Nitesh travels for work during the week. So because of the lockdown, he is home. So I have another person to help me with the kids.
Right.
But when it is just about kids that I talk about, I have kind of made like a rough routine for them during the day. And we know that in the morning, it's my cooking time, whereas the siblings get time to play with each other. The kids get time to play with toys, they get to explore, they get to jump on the couch, and I don't say a no to them because how else do we vent their energy, right?
Right.
So the discipline part has taken a back seat,
right,
and the fun part has taken a priority.
Right.
Then in the afternoon, when Arya goes to sleep, is when Prayan and I sit together and we either work on projects, or he does some writing bit or some reading bit or just some storytelling and things like that.
Right.
And then in the evening, we try and go out for walks, for short walks, for hikes right behind our community. And then after they come back is when they get screen time. So that is when I prepare dinner. Like I would have done most of my cooking in the morning itself.
Right.
But for night, just soon after they come back, we all take a shower, and they are put in front of the TV when they are calm. And I prepared dinner, they eat dinner, and they go to bed. Right. And that's when my me time starts, 10 to 3, remember?
Right. And that's the story of all us night owls, staying up late at night, doing things that we cannot do when the kids are around.
Right, exactly.
Right. So that's amazing that you have handled the lockdown period so well. And so I have a few rapid fire questions for you, just to end the interview with a fun tone to it. Not very complicated, just a few questions just for fun.
Sure.
So, the first question, I think you already answered it. It was, are you a morning person or a night person?
Totally night person, as in no way morning person.
Right. Movies or books or both?
Earlier movies, but now books.
Okay. And what are you reading currently?
I just finished Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy. It's a very funny read. Everybody should read it. If you haven't already, you must read it.
Okay. So take note, whoever's watching, Hitchhiker's Guide to Galaxy. Okay. What is the best advice you have received from someone?
Follow your heart and suno sabki karo man ki. So listen to everybody, but do what your heart asks you to do.
Right, right. If you could be reborn as one person, who would that be and why?
I would like to say myself because that's like the most cliche answer. But if I... Deepika Padukone, maybe she's so pretty.
Of course, yeah, we all want to be born as her. Yeah, she is she's a beauty with brains.
She is so pretty. Yeah,
she's
pretty,
so pretty
and so successful. So
she's a good combination of beauty with brains.
Yeah, and everybody knows her. She's famous, rich, pretty. She has everything going for her. So why not her?
Right. And how do you start your day? Do you have any ritual in the morning that you do every day?
Walk like a zombie when my daughter cries to her room. That's how I start my day. No, not really. I just, I mean, one of the kids would have woken me up, most likely.
Right.
So we just go brush our teeth and then come down and, just the usual stuff. No real routine as such.
Okay. If you could be stuck on an island with 3 people and no, your husband Nirdesh and your kids are not allowed, then who would they be? You,
Deepti.
I'm very honored to hear that.
We can talk our heart out.
Of course, yes.
Then there is another friend of mine called Arvind. He's in Bangalore, and we can also talk. We cannot, even if we haven't spoken for the longest time, when we speak to one another, it can just flow. It just flows.
Right.
So Arvind, Deepti, and third one, maybe a celebrity again. Maybe Deepika Padukone. So she
Why
can
not?
entertain us. Yeah, why not?
Cool. Are you a helicopter mom or a relaxed mom?
Very relaxed. In fact, my friends sometimes, they're scared for how relaxed I am. Definitely not helicopter mom.
Okay. And what is a favorite mom hack of yours? So we all have a mom hack. It could be a quick recipe. It could be a quick craft. It could be a quick trick to calm your kids down. Anything that you can share, which is a mom hack.
So for my older one, it's puzzles. So when he's going super crazy and he's just not listening to me, I throw a box of puzzles and I'm like, just please solve it. And sometimes when the situation is worse, I sit with him and do it. So that calms both of us down.
Right.
For my little one, it's TV.
Okay.
I mean, I shouldn't even be saying that. I'll probably get a lot of flack for it, but that's the only thing that works
Okay.
right now.
Okay. And what is a final piece of advice, just life advice, if you want to give to anybody who is watching?
Advice to others is something that I don't generally do.
Right.
But the best advice for me was just do what your heart says you to do.
Right.
And that's what I think has worked so far for me. And that's exactly what I'll try and tell others.
Right.
That always listen to your heart. Even if you're doing something wrong, there would be a tiny little nudge in your heart that, okay, you want to do that, but maybe that's not right. So just listen to that nudge is what I'll tell everybody.
Right. Thank you, Deepti. It was so wonderful talking to you and, to listen to your journey and to listen to how you spend time with your kids and you balance everything. I for sure, got inspired and I have learned a few things from this interview. So thank you for being here today and talking to us.
You're very welcome, Deepti. In fact, thank you for inviting me as your first guest. I wish you all the best for your Osmoms Diaries, and I'm sure I'll get to hear a lot more fun stuff from a lot other achievers, mom achievers.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Deepti. Take care and have a good one.
Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.